The massive Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace like dark thunderclouds gathering before a storm. Their crystalline ships stretched across the void, each one the size of a city block, pulsing with deadly purple energy that made the stars themselves seem to dim in fear. The alien vessels looked like giant floating cathedrals made of black glass, their surfaces covered in sharp spikes that crackled with electric power. Commander Yethra stood on the bridge of her flagship, her crystalline body towering 8 feet tall with skin that looked like polished obsidian. Her forearms moved gracefully as she studied the small blue world, spinning peacefully in the distance. To her, Earth was nothing special, just another primitive planet full of weak creatures ready for harvesting. Her species had conquered hundreds of worlds exactly like this one. The pattern was always the same. Arrive, demand surrender, harvest resources, move on. Another pathetic civilization, she clicked in her musical alien language, her voice sounding like wind chimes made of razor blades. Begin standard harvesting protocols. Their resistance will last perhaps one of their solar rotations. But something unexpected happened. A small human ship emerged from behind Earth's moon, moving slowly with its weapon systems powered down. The vessel was tiny compared to the Vorthak warships, like a house cat approaching a pack of wolves. Its hull gleamed white in the sunlight, and peaceful symbols were painted across its surface in bright colors. Captain Lee Minho sat in the command chair of the diplomatic vessel, Peace Seeker, his hands steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. Around him, his crew of 20 worked quietly at their stations, each person knowing they might not live to see another sunrise. The communication officer, a young woman named Han Yu-jin, looked up nervously. "Captain, we're receiving targeting. Logs from 17 alien ships," she reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maintain course," Lee Minho replied calmly. "Open all communication channels. Broadcast the friendship packages in every alien language we know." The Peace Seeker began transmitting everything humanity had learned about diplomacy over thousands of years. Ancient treaties, peace accords, cultural exchange programs, trade agreements, all of it flowing toward the alien fleet in a digital river of hope. Captain Lee Minho personally recorded a message, speaking directly to whoever might be listening. "We are humans from the planet Earth," his voice carried across space. "We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding. We offer you our knowledge, our culture, our friendship. Please let us talk." Commander Yethra watched the pathetic display with growing irritation. These creatures actually thought they could negotiate. Her species had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they didn't need. The concept of friendship with inferior beings was as foreign to her as breathing underwater would be to a human. "Foolish mammals," she hissed, her crystalline claws clicking against her command console. "They waste our time with their primitive babbling. Without any warning, without any attempt at communication, Yethra raised one of her forearms. "Fire!" she commanded. The Vorthak flagship's main weapon charged with a sound, like 1,000 violins screaming in harmony. Purple energy gathered at the ship's pointed bow, growing brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at directly. Then, with a flash that lit up half the solar system, the plasma beam lanced out across space. The Peace Seeker didn't even have time to change course. One moment it was there, broadcasting messages of hope and friendship. The next moment it was nothing but scattered atoms and fading light. 23 souls, including Captain Lee Minho, vanished in an instant. Their final transmission cut off mid-sentence. "We believe that all intelligent species can find common ground." On Earth, President Park Ji-woo stood in the emergency command center deep beneath the capital city. The room was filled with screens showing data from telescopes, satellites, and monitoring stations scattered throughout the solar system. Military officers, scientists, and government officials crowded around displays, their faces pale as they watched the destruction of humanity's first diplomatic contact with an alien species. President Park's hands gripped the metal railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but her presence filled the room like a gathering storm. For 30 seconds, nobody spoke. The only sound was the quiet humming of computers and the distant ventilation system. "Ma'am," whispered Foreign, Minister Cho Dongwoo, they didn't even try to communicate. They just killed them all. President Park closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about Captain Lee Min-ho and his crew. Good people, brave people, people who believed that even aliens could be reasoned with. She thought about their families, waiting at home for news that would never come. When she opened her eyes again, something had changed. The diplomatic president who had authorized the peace mission was gone. In her place stood something harder, colder, more dangerous. They chose war, she said quietly, but every person in the room heard her words clearly. Now they'll learn what humans do when cornered. Defense Minister Kim Tae-sung stepped forward. He was a tall, serious man who had spent his entire career preparing for this exact moment. Operation Hornet's Nest is ready, ma'am. All hidden assets are online and awaiting orders. President Park nodded slowly, never taking her eyes off the screens showing the alien fleet. Execute immediately. Show them that humanity doesn't fight fair when our survival is at stake. The aliens had made their first and biggest mistake. They assumed humanity would fight like them, standing in neat lines following predictable patterns, respecting some kind of galactic honor code. They were about to learn that humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare, and they were very, very good at it. The moment President Park gave the order, space around Earth transformed from peaceful emptiness into a deadly trap that had been 50 years in the making. What looked like ordinary mining stations, scattered throughout the asteroid belt, suddenly shed their fake outer shells like snakes shedding skin. Massive railguns emerged from hidden compartments, their barrels stretching hundreds of meters long. Missile pods that had been disguised as ore processors opened like deadly flowers, revealing rows of nuclear-tipped warheads. Captain Shin Da-eun felt the familiar vibration of her ship's engines as the silent thunder powered up from its hiding spot inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Her stealth frigate was humanity's most advanced warship, built in secret over the past 10 years. Its hull was covered in metamaterial that bent light and radar around it, like water flowing around a stone. To alien sensors, it was practically invisible. "All stations report ready, Captain," called out her weapons officer, a young man named Park Hyun-soo, whose steady hands had earned him a place on humanity's most elite crew. Shin Da-eun looked around, her bridge at the 24 souls under her command. Each person had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. They were the best humanity had to offer. Pilots who could thread a needle at light speed, engineers who could fix anything with spare parts and determination, warriors who understood that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to be willing to die for it. "Remember what we learned in training," she said, her voice calm despite the thundering of her heartbeat. "We're not trying to match their firepower. That would be like ants trying to arm wrestle elephants. We're trying to break their will, make them doubt themselves, turn their own strength against them." The silent thunder glided through space between the massive Vorthak ships, like a ghost haunting a cathedral. The alien vessels were so huge they created their own gravitational fields, their crystalline hulls crackling with purple energy that could vaporize a human city in seconds. But size was also a weakness. Something that big couldn't change direction quickly, couldn't react to threats that moved fast and struck without warning. Lieutenant Oh Sung-min sat hunched over his cyber warfare station, his fingers dancing across holographic keyboards faster than the eye could follow. Before joining the military, he had been one of Earth's most notorious hackers, the kind of person who could break into government databases just to prove it could be done. Now his skills served a different purpose. "I'm detecting their communication frequencies," he reported, sweat beading on his forehead as lines of alien code scrolled across his screens. "Their language is mathematical, based on crystalline resonance patterns. Give me 60 seconds and I can start feeding them false information." While Oh Sung-min worked his digital magic, swarms of human fighter craft emerged from hidden bases on the dark side of Earth's moon. These weren't the big, powerful ships that aliens expected. They were small, fast, and deadly, piloted by humans who had learned to fly before they could walk. Each fighter was barely larger than an old Earth automobile, but they moved like hummingbirds on steroids. Commander Lee Jae-won led the first wave of fighters, his squadron diving toward the alien fleet like a pack of wolves attacking a herd of elephants. His ship, the Razor's Edge, was built for speed and maneuverability rather than heavy weapons. It carried just enough firepower to punch through alien armor at close range, but its real weapon was the pilot's ability to think and react faster than any computer. "Gold Squadron, follow my lead," he transmitted to his wingmates. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy these things. We're trying to blind them, confuse them, make them panic." The human fighters swarmed around the massive Vorthak ships like angry wasps attacking someone who had disturbed their nest. They targeted sensor arrays, communication dishes, and weapon control systems, not trying to sink the giant vessels, but to make them deaf and blind. Purple energy beams lashed out from the alien ships, but the human pilots were too fast, too unpredictable. They would appear from one direction, strike like lightning, then vanish before the aliens could target them properly. Commander Yethra watched the chaos unfolding around her fleet with growing confusion and rage. These pathetic creatures were supposed to surrender or die quickly. That was how conquest worked. Instead, they were buzzing around her ships like insects, and somehow her targeting systems kept malfunctioning. Ships that should have been able to swat these tiny fighters like flies were missing again and again. "Status report," she demanded, her crystalline voice sharp with frustration. "Commander, we're experiencing massive system failures," reported her tactical officer. "Our targeting computers are receiving conflicting data. Ship sensors are reporting phantom contacts. Some vessels are firing on our own forces by mistake." What Yethra didn't know was that Lieutenant Oh Sung-min had successfully penetrated their network. His virus was spreading through the Vorthak fleet like a digital plague, corrupting data, reversing commands, and turning their own technology against them. When an alien gunner tried to target a human fighter, his computer would shift the target lock to a friendly ship instead. When a ship tried to communicate with the fleet, the message would be scrambled into nonsense. The chaos reached its peak when the UNS Brisbane, one of the hidden weapon platforms, opened fire with its main railgun. The tungsten projectile, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, punched through the side armor of a Vorthak cruiser like a bullet through tissue paper. The alien ship didn't explode. It simply developed a hole the size of a city block, atmosphere and debris streaming out into space. But the real psychological impact came when 3 Vorthak destroyers, their targeting systems corrupted by human cyber attacks, began firing on each other in a 3-way battle that lit up the darkness with purple energy beams. The sight of their own ships destroying each other sent waves of confusion and fear through the alien fleet. Captain Shin Da-un watched the battle unfold from her position between 2 massive alien battleships, her stealth ship invisible to their sensors. "Sung-min, can you make them think we have 1,000 ships instead of 100? The hacker grinned, his fingers never stopping their dance across the keyboards. "Captain, by the time I'm done with them, they'll think Earth has its own Death Star hiding behind the moon." The Vorthak had come expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves fighting ghosts, enemies who appeared from nowhere, struck without warning and vanished before retaliation was possible. Their superior technology meant nothing when they couldn't trust their own senses, when their own weapons turned against them, when every advantage was twisted into a liability by human creativity and desperation. This was humanity's true strength, not their weapons or their technology, but their ability to adapt, to think outside the box, to turn every disadvantage into an opportunity for victory. Commander Yethra's crystalline form trembled with rage as she watched another of her ships spiral out of control, its crew confused by the human cyber attacks. Her perfect conquest was turning into a nightmare. These primitive mammals were supposed to die quickly and quietly, not fight back with such devastating effectiveness. She had never encountered a species that could turn their own technology against them so cleverly. "Open emergency channels to the High Command," she ordered, her voice cracking like breaking glass. "Request immediate reinforcements from the 2nd and 3rd fleets." The transmission burst across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, carrying Yethra's desperate plea to every corner of the Vorthak Empire. Her message painted humanity as a dangerous plague that threatened the natural order of the universe. She described their unpredictable tactics, their refusal to follow proper military protocols, their disturbing ability to corrupt Vorthak technology. These creatures are not like the others we have harvested, her broadcast warned. They fight without honor, without predictable patterns. They must be eliminated completely before their chaos spreads to other worlds. I request authorization for total planetary sterilization. Across 17 star systems, Vorthak commanders received the emergency transmission. Within hours, massive fleets began changing course toward the small yellow star that humans called Sol. Hundreds of crystalline warships, each capable of cracking a planet in half, turned their weapons toward Earth. But while the aliens mobilized for genocide, humanity was making discoveries that would change everything. On Mars, deep beneath the red planet's surface, Dr. Han So-young worked frantically in her hidden laboratory. The facility had been built inside an old lava tube, its existence known only to a handful of Earth's top scientists. Banks of quantum computers hummed quietly as they analyzed captured Vorthak technology, searching for weaknesses that human weapons could exploit. Dr. Han was a small woman with tired eyes who hadn't slept properly in 3 days. Around her, holographic displays showed the alien ships in incredible detail. Their crystalline hulls, their energy patterns, their biological signatures. She had been studying the wreckage of destroyed Vorthak fighters, trying to understand how their technology worked. There, she whispered, pointing at a frequency analysis chart that flickered in the air before her. Computer, overlay this pattern with standard human musical scales. The result made her gasp out loud. The crystalline structure of Vorthak biology resonated at exactly the same frequencies that humans used in their music. The aliens' bodies were essentially living tuning forks, vibrating in harmony with sound waves that humans had been creating for thousands of years. Emergency transmission to Earth Command, she said, her voice shaking with excitement. Priority Alpha classification. Within minutes, she was connected to the Emergency Science Council, a group of Earth's brightest minds who had been working around the clock to find ways to defeat the alien invasion. President Park Ji-woo joined the video call personally, her face haggard from stress and lack of sleep. Dr. Han, please tell me you have good news, the president said. Ma'am, their crystalline biology resonates at specific frequencies. The same frequencies we use in our music. Classical, jazz, rock, even traditional folk songs. If we can weaponize sound waves at these exact frequencies, we might be able to disrupt their ships, maybe even their bodies. The implications hit everyone in the room at the same time. Humanity's love of music, something that made them unique among Earth species, might be the key to defeating an alien empire that had conquered half the galaxy. While Dr. Han worked on her breakthrough, 300 million kilometers away, Marine Colonel Choi Woo-jin was leading the most dangerous mission of his career. His team of 12 elite soldiers had somehow managed to board a damaged Vorthak command ship that was drifting helplessly after a human cyber attack had disabled its engines. The alien vessel was a maze of crystalline corridors filled with purple mist that made breathing difficult even through their combat suits. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air hummed with residual energy from the ship's failing power systems. Every step echoed strangely in the alien architecture, as if the ship itself was groaning in pain. Stay tight. Stay alert, Choi whispered into his helmet radio. We don't know what kind of defensive systems these things might have. His team moved through the ship like professional hunters, their weapons ready, their movements coordinated through years of training. Sergeant Kim Min-kyu took point, his scanner detecting life signs deeper in the ship. Behind them, corpsmen. Lee Ji-hoon monitored their life support systems, making sure the alien atmosphere wasn't slowly poisoning them. They found the central computer core in what appeared to be the ship's brain, a massive chamber filled with floating crystal matrices that pulsed with soft light. The alien computers were beautiful in a terrifying way, like frozen lightning captured in glass. But they were also dying, their light fading as the ship's power systems failed. Quick, before the whole system shuts down, Choi ordered. Download everything we can get. Tech specialist Park Sun-woo plugged human data extractors into the alien network, his equipment struggling to interface with technology that operated on completely different principles. Streams of data began flowing from the dying alien computers into human storage devices, terabytes of information that might hold the secrets to defeating the Vorthak Empire. But as the data downloaded, translation programs began converting alien text into human languages. What they revealed made Colonel Choi's blood run cold. The files contained detailed records of 17 different species that the Vorthak had encountered over the past 1,000 years. Each entry followed the same pattern: initial contact, evaluation, of threat level, strategic assessment, and finally complete extermination. Entire civilizations had been wiped out simply because the Vorthak considered them inconvenient or unpredictable. There were the Kelthari, a peaceful species of artists and philosophers who had been eliminated because their abstract thinking confused Vorthak logic. The Vreenoks, aggressive warriors who had fought bravely but ultimately fell to superior firepower. The Minthara, advanced technologists who had tried to negotiate and been destroyed for their efforts. Each species had brought something unique to the galaxy: art, music, science, philosophy. All of it was gone now, erased by an empire that valued order above life, control above creativity. "Colonel," Park Sun-woo said quietly, "there's more. These files, they're not just historical records, they're test results. The Vorthak have been using each species as an experiment, learning from their resistance methods, preparing for future conquests." Choi felt sick as the full implications hit him. Humanity wasn't the Vorthak's first victim. They were just the latest in a long line of genocide stretching back centuries. But they were also something else, the most successful resistance the aliens had ever encountered. "Get everything," he ordered. "Every file, every piece of data. If we're going to be their last victims, then by God, we're going to make sure we're also their last mistake." As alarms began blaring throughout the dying alien ship, Colonel Choi's team raced against time to download the evidence of an empire built on the bones of extinct civilizations. They had found the proof they needed to rally the galaxy against the Vorthak, but first they had to survive long enough to get it home. The war was about to become something much bigger than a fight for Earth's survival. It was about to become a reckoning for every species the Vorthak had murdered in their march across the stars. The breakthrough came at exactly 1432 Earth Standard Time, when the first human harmonic weapon fired in anger. Engineer Yoon Sang-ho had worked for 72 hours straight, converting Dr. Han's frequency research into something that could be mounted on a spacecraft. His prototype looked nothing like a traditional weapon. Instead of gun barrels and missile tubes, it resembled a massive speaker system combined with a concert hall's sound equipment. "Harmonic Cannon 1 target acquired," reported Captain Jung Min-seo from her attack ship, Resonance Strike. The Vorthak heavy cruiser floating before her was a kilometer-long crystal monster, its surface crackling with deadly purple energy. But now she knew its weakness. "Fire when ready," came the order from Earth Command. The harmonic weapon unleashed a focused beam of sound waves at frequencies that Dr. Han had identified as catastrophically dangerous to Vorthak crystalline biology. The invisible sonic attack hit the alien ship at the speed of sound, and the effect was immediate and spectacular. The massive vessel began to vibrate like a tuning fork struck by a hammer. First, hairline cracks appeared along its crystalline hull. Then the cracks spread, racing across the ship's surface like lightning made of breaking glass. The alien crew inside felt their own bodies beginning to resonate with the deadly frequency, their crystalline bones vibrating, their internal organs shaking apart at the molecular level. With a sound like a cathedral-sized wind chime being shattered by a hurricane, the Vorthak cruiser broke apart into millions of glittering fragments. Where seconds before there had been a mighty warship, now there was only a cloud of crystal dust sparkling in the starlight. "Holy Mother of..." Captain Jung breathed, staring at the destruction. It worked. It actually worked. Across the human fleet, similar scenes played out as harmonic weapons came online. Ships that had seemed invincible suddenly became as fragile as wine glasses in an earthquake. The Vorthak's greatest strength, their beautiful crystalline technology, had become their fatal weakness. Human engineers worked frantically to produce more sonic weapons, converting everything from mining equipment to entertainment systems into instruments of war. But even as human ships gained the upper hand in local battles, Commander Yethra's reinforcements were arriving from across the Vorthak Empire. Hundreds of crystalline warships dropped out of hyperspace around Earth's solar system, their combined firepower enough to sterilize every planet from Mercury to Pluto. The aliens had decided that if they couldn't conquer humanity, they would erase them completely. That's when humanity played its greatest card, not superior technology or clever tactics, but something the rigid Vorthak Empire had never understood, the power of hope. Ambassador Li Yejin sat in a cramped command post, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid beyond Pluto's orbit. Her hidden communication station was humanity's most secret facility, designed to send messages across the galaxy without being detected. For months, she had been listening to alien transmissions, learning about the vast network of species enslaved by the Vorthak Empire. This is Ambassador Li Yejin of Earth, broadcasting on all frequencies to anyone who can hear this message, she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. We know you're out there. We know you've been enslaved. Oppressed, treated as property by the Vorthak Empire. We're here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. Her transmission raced across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, carrying with it something that hadn't been seen in this part of space for centuries. Hope. But she didn't stop with words. Along with her message, she broadcast the complete technical specifications for human harmonic weapons, including detailed instructions for building them from common materials. We're sharing our weapons technology with you freely, she continued. No payment required, no strings attached, no demands for loyalty. Fight for your freedom. We'll show you how. The effect was electric. On 17 different worlds across the Vorthak Empire, enslaved species received humanity's gift and realized that their oppressors weren't invincible after all. The Zekmori, a race of insectoid engineers who had been forced to build Vorthak weapons for 3 centuries, suddenly turned their manufacturing facilities toward producing harmonic devices. The Thyla, aquatic beings enslaved on ocean worlds, used their natural sonar abilities to amplify the sonic weapons beyond anything humans had imagined. Most dramatically, the Corvin rebellion began when a young warrior named Thak received Li Yejin's transmission in his slave barracks on the mining world of Vorthak Prime. Within hours, he had organized his fellow prisoners to build crude harmonic weapons from mining equipment. Their uprising started as a desperate escape attempt, but quickly became something much larger. Admiral Nam Hyunwoo watched the chaos unfold from Earth's primary command center, a massive underground facility that had become the nerve center for humanity's war effort. Banks of screens showed battles raging across dozens of star systems as enslaved species turned human weapons against their Vorthak masters. Sir, we're receiving confirmation from the Outer Rim, reported Communications Officer Bae Young-jae. The Thyla have successfully liberated their home system. They're requesting coordination with our fleet movements. The Zekmori have captured 3 Vorthak supply depots, added intelligence specialist Song Yun-hee. They're sharing intel on Vorthak fleet positions throughout the spiral arm. Admiral Nam smiled grimly as he watched the tactical displays update in real time. The rigid Vorthak command structure, built on absolute obedience and fear, was collapsing, like a house of cards. Their slave species had been the foundation of their empire's strength, providing labor, resources, and manufacturing capability. Now those same slaves were using human weapons to tear the empire apart from within. Patch me through to all resistance cells, Nam ordered. Let's coordinate this properly. What followed was the galaxy's first truly democratic military alliance. Species that had never met each other began working together, sharing intelligence and resources to fight their common enemy. The cat-like Felinar used their natural stealth abilities to sabotage Vorthak communication networks. The silicon-based Christek turned their mineral processing technology into devastating sonic amplifiers. The energy beings called the Luminari provided power sources for weapons that could shatter entire Vorthak fleets. Each species brought something unique to the fight, and humanity served as the coordinator, the teacher, the inspiration that had started it all. Earth became the unofficial capital of a rebellion that spanned half the galaxy, with Ambassador Lee's hidden station serving as the communication hub for the greatest uprising in galactic history. Commander Yethra watched her empire crumble in real time, receiving reports of rebellions, defeats, and defections from across her domain. The humans had done something no previous enemy had managed. They had turned the Vorthak's own strength against them, weaponized their diversity, and given hope to species that had forgotten what freedom meant. For the first time in her long life, Yethra felt something she had never experienced before: fear. Not fear of death in battle, but fear that everything her species had built might be coming to an end. The humans had started something that couldn't be stopped with conventional warfare. They had started a revolution of hope that was spreading faster than any fleet could travel. The tide of war was turning, and it was carrying with it the dreams of freedom from 1,000 enslaved worlds. The space around Earth had become a graveyard of shattered dreams and broken ships. Wreckage from dozens of battles floated in slow, silent orbits around humanity's blue homeworld. But as the final Vorthak fleet emerged from hyperspace like angry gods returning for vengeance, Earth still spun peacefully in the void, scarred, but unbroken, defiant to the end. Commander Yethra stood on the bridge of her flagship, her once perfect crystalline form now cracked and dimmed by weeks of devastating defeats. Purple veins of stress fractures ran through her translucent skin like lightning frozen in glass. Her forearms trembled with barely contained rage as she stared at the small blue planet that had destroyed her 1,000-year empire. Final transmission. To the human leadership, she commanded, her voice like breaking crystal. Let them know their end has come. Admiral Kang Minjae received the alien communication aboard his flagship Indomitable Spirit, high above Earth's North Pole. He was an old man now, grey-haired and battle-scarred from months of impossible warfare, but his eyes still burned, with the fire that had carried humanity through its darkest hour. Around him, his bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, each person knowing they were about to witness either humanity's greatest triumph or its final chapter. Admiral, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Choi Da-som. We're receiving the alien commander's transmission. Yethra's holographic image materialized in the center of the human bridge, her towering form crackling with malevolent energy. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of centuries of conquest and the bitter taste of recent defeat. I am Commander Yethra of the Vorthak Empire, she began, her musical voice now harsh and discordant. Your species has caused considerable inconvenience, but your rebellion ends today. You should have submitted when we first arrived. Now your world burns and every human life becomes forfeit. Admiral Kang looked up at the alien commander without flinching. Despite the size of the fleet arrayed against Earth, over 200 crystalline warships, each one capable of cracking continents, he felt strangely calm. Commander Yethra, he replied steadily, humanity tried to offer you peace. You chose war. Now you get to live with the consequences. The alien commander's crystalline features twisted into something that might have been a smile if it hadn't been so cold. Consequences? You speak of consequences to me? I have watched your pathetic species corrupt my empire, turn my subjects against me, steal my victories. But this ends now. Prepare for planetary bombardment. But as Yethra raised her arm to give the final order, something impossible happened. Nothing. Her weapons officer, a junior commander named Vexitar, stood frozen at his station, his crystalline hands hovering over the firing controls but unable to press them. Fire! Yethra commanded again, her voice rising to a shriek. Vexitar's form was shaking, stress fractures appearing along his arms as he struggled with something he had never experienced before. Doubt. Commander, he said slowly, these creatures, they offered us peace. They shared their weapons freely with our slaves, asking nothing in return. Perhaps we should listen to them. Dr. Han So-young's latest breakthrough had been humanity's most subtle weapon yet. The new harmonic frequencies didn't shatter Vorthak ships or kill their crews. Instead, they did something far more dangerous. To an empire built on absolute obedience, they awakened the capacity for independent thought. The sonic waves were broadcasting across all frequencies now, carried by every human ship and station, slowly dissolving the mental conditioning that had kept Vorthak society functioning for millennia. Across the alien fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Ship commanders found themselves questioning orders they would have followed without hesitation just days before. Weapons officers wondered why they were preparing to destroy a planet full of beings who had offered friendship. Navigation officers asked themselves whether conquest was really the highest purpose they could serve. Mutiny, Yethra whispered, the word foreign on her tongue. This is impossible. We do not question. We do not doubt. We obey. But her own words sounded hollow even to her. Around her bridge, her officers were looking at her with expressions she had never seen before. Confusion, uncertainty, and something that might have been pity. "Commander," said her tactical officer, an elderly Vorthak named Kretin who had served for 3 centuries, "I have been thinking about the species we have eliminated. The Kelthari had such beautiful art. The Thyla wrote poetry that moved the soul. Did we have the right to destroy such things?" Yethra felt something breaking inside her crystalline chest, not physically, but something deeper and more fundamental. She was alone now, the last believer in an empire that had lost faith in itself. Around her, her fleet was powering down weapons, opening communication channels to the human ships, sending tentative messages of surrender and requests for negotiation. President Park Ji-woo's voice filled the void, where once there had been only the sound of charging weapons and targeting computers. Her transmission came from Earth's surface, carried by every satellite and relay station in the solar system, broadcast across the galaxy to reach every species that had ever suffered under Vorthak rule. To all beings, whether free or enslaved, friend or former enemy, she began, her words steady and clear, Earth extends the hand of friendship. We have learned that the galaxy is not a place of conquest and submission, but a community of diverse species, each with something unique to offer. We offer friendship to those who choose peace, and protection to those who cannot protect themselves. Her message was translated into thousands of languages and broadcast simultaneously, creating a chorus of hope that reached from the innermost worlds to the galactic rim. The harmonic frequencies that had awakened independent thought in the Vorthak now carried something else. Music, human music, played on instruments from every corner of Earth and sung in voices that spoke of dreams rather than domination. Yethra listened to the alien melody with something approaching wonder. For the first time in her long life, she heard beauty that wasn't based on order and control, but on chaos and creativity working together to create something larger than the sum of its parts. "What have we done?" she whispered, looking down at her cracked and failing form. "What have we destroyed in the name of order?" Years passed like pages turning in the book of galactic history. The Vorthak Empire dissolved not in fire and blood, but in a gradual awakening to possibilities they had never imagined. Former slave worlds became independent systems, each developing according to their own nature and desires. Trade replaced. Conquest cultural exchange replaced subjugation. On what had once been Vorthak Prime, the crystal spires of the old empire still reached toward the stars, but now they housed something unprecedented, the galaxy's first interspecies cultural center. Alien children from dozens of worlds played together in gardens where once only Vorthak warriors had walked. They learned each other's languages, shared each other's games, and most remarkably of all, they sang human songs together. The sound of their voices, crystalline Vorthak harmonics blending with Thyla water songs, Zekmori chittering rhythms, and human melodies, created something entirely new. Music that no single species could have imagined alone, but which spoke to universal truths that transcended the boundaries between worlds. Ambassador Li Yejin, now elderly but still sharp, watched from the center's observation deck as a group of young beings from 7 different species worked together on a project that would have been impossible under the old empire, a symphony that incorporated elements from every known musical tradition in the galaxy. "The last word," she murmured to herself, remembering the desperate broadcast she had sent from her hidden station so many years ago. But she realized now that there was no last word, only new conversations beginning, new harmonies being discovered, new friendships being forged among the stars. The galaxy hummed with life now, diverse and chaotic and beautiful in ways the old empire had never allowed. And at the heart of it all was humanity's simple message, carried forward by 1,000 different voices: unity through diversity, strength through compassion, hope through harmony. The war was over. The music had just begun, the end.